Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co hosts, Logan Clements. And in this week's episode, we are talking all about sales strategies that you can use as an event freelancer or event business, or if you work internal at a company, how you can integrate sales into your role. So, Mary and I compare and contrast some of our differing and overlapping strategies we've used for our business. We also talk about repeat clients, things that have surprised us about how we've booked events, and much, much more. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Better Events Podcast. We are so happy to be with you today and that you're taking the time to have this conversation with us today. We're talking about sales strategies for your event business. This is going to be a beefy topic, I think. So we're going to get into it. But before we do, we have our conversation starter for today. So Logan, hello. And also, what is your favorite breakfast food? The best meal of the day?
We already know that Mary loves breakfast, listeners. I feel like when we pick this conversation starter, it's like Mary's gonna have strong feelings. I am also a fan of a good breakfast food, and I am just a sucker for bacon. And I was recently out in where was I? A couple of weeks ago, I was in LA, and I had one of friend Quincy Q, friend of the pod, was able to guess my order at the two different diners we went to. She's like, "You're gonna get the classic breakfast, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just love 2 eggs with bacon, some toast or hash browns, and it just hits. It's the best thing ever." And sometimes a sweet treat on the side of like a cinnamon bun or like half a pancake, but bacon is the star of my breakfast food show.
Okay. So as you were explaining that, I was like waiting to hear the pancake or some sweet little treat along with your breakfast food. So I'm glad you ended with that, Logan. I respect bacon, first of all. My favorite breakfast food, I have so many. Where do I begin? I love a fried egg, but I also love, I already said pancakes. Pancakes or French toast. But here's the thing is I feel like I can't eat them in the morning. Like it's just going to give me like the sugar high. So I responsibly will have an egg or like an avocado or whatever, protein drink, and then some pancakes. There you go. That's my answer.
You level it out. The egg and the avocado is supposed to just level out the sugar crash from the pancake.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying. Okay.
But I have to say though, breakfast, my favorite time to eat breakfast is for lunch or dinner. It's not necessarily at breakfast time. So throw that in there. Why not?
I never do that as an adult, but I do remember as a kid enjoying like the crazy waffle night every so often.
Yeah. Try it.
I do feel like we need to let our listeners know, if they don't know about event bacon or show bacon in the production world, is the joy that overcomes all the production people when they realize that at the crew breakfast there is bacon, and it's show bacon. Mainly because, one, that usually means they went for a slightly nicer breakfast if it includes bacon. And two, it's usually pretty darn delicious, because I will say catering, I'm sick of event chicken. Mary and I were talking about this at an on-site event just last month, that I said I was like, I can order the chicken because I've had so much event chicken. But for whatever reason, they figured out and cracked the code for event bacon, and it does taste delicious. Not the turkey bacon, like the real bacon. So that's event bacon, if you ever hear that in event world terms.
I love it. I love some event bacon. But Logan, kick us off on why we chose our topic today.
Yeah. This one, I mean, I feel like sales strategy is a word I don't enjoy, but I also will acknowledge that sales are an inevitable part of being a freelancer or an independent contractor or a business owner. And whether you call it sales or marketing or lead generation or client relations or whatever word you use, we just figured it was worth talking about here on the podcast and kind of comparing, contrasting some of the similarities and differences that Mary and I have with our current sales strategies as business owners. Some differences because of just our sizes of business, with me being a solopreneur and Mary having built a team. But just to kind of think for you listeners, as we get here midway through the year, this is a great time to reevaluate your own sales strategies and processes and see what adjustments you need to make, because we're still got 6 months left in 2025. And if you're looking for those really big time events, this is also the time to really be looking at 2026 and what contracts you're trying to win. So, Mary, we start broad. What do we mean when we say sales strategies for your event business?
So before I get into that specifically, Logan, of course, you pinged something for me in my brain. You said it's not a very, appealing, appetizing, whatever the word is, way to talk about this sales strategies. So you better believe I asked Chat GPT to make it a little bit more funky for us. So not only are we talking about sales strategies today, but we are talking about the sell it sauce, the deal making mojo, the cha-ching tactics, the closing magic, the profit playbook, revenue recipes, and sales swagger. So there you go. If you need a little more pep in your step for today's episode, there you go.
Sales swagger. It loves I guess we said sales strategies. It
Yeah,
loves the
there's some
alliteration in
alliteration.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That just makes
for
it sound
sure.
cool, I guess. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. So now it's cool. Now that we've established that this is cool, to answer your question, what do we mean when we say sales strategies or any of those other fun words for your event business? Logan, you described it when we were talking offline as things that you're doing to win more business. I liked that. I wrote it down. So I think that's essentially what we're talking about today. And like Logan said, we both, I think, do some similar things and different things. And there are so many different areas that you can invest your money, your time for sales strategies. So we're just going to be sharing what has worked for us. And now a word from one of our partners.
SnapQuest offers a completely digital and customized interactive photo scavenger hunt personalized for your event. Guests fulfill clues by uploading photos for the potential to win exciting prizes.
Direct guests to new areas or exciting attractions and keep them engaged. Collect priceless photos and emails you wouldn't get from hired photographers. Recognize sponsors with digital ad space and tap into endless potential to boost sponsorships.
Visit snapquest.co, that's snapquest.co, to set up your free consultation today. Mention the Better Events podcast and you'll earn $100 off your event's SnapQuest.
And now back to the episode. Logan, is there anything you want to add to that? Or if not, we can kind of go further into how you market and your business and services.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. And I think there's stuff here we're going to talk about that's also applicable if you work full-time for somebody else, because they're going to probably always want you to also be doing some kind of sales as a part of your job, and or just having that mindset in terms of helping them renew business. And that can hopefully help you personally earn more money, whether that's bonuses or raises. So just a nice, I think, applicable conversation. But yeah, I guess I can go first with how I market my business or services. It has definitely evolved over the years. When I first started my business, I made a website, and I think I just thought people would find me via Google, via my beautiful website that I just built. And I was sadly disappointed. It was very much, and to this day is my primary, I did this outreach and then I got booked, is via email. Like me sending a personal one-to-one email. I'm emailing this one person to see if they need any support for their upcoming events. And that has been something that's so consistent that I've probably talked about here on the podcast before, but I have a section of my paper planner that is called People to Reach Out to. And I try to reach out to folks, a couple different people. Usually I try like once every couple months to the same person. So I just try to do, their events in the fall, maybe in the spring, I'm going to reach out and just see what they're doing. Or if I know they hire a year out, I'll do it a year in advance. But doing that one-to-one emails, whether it's a cold email of someone's email I find on a website for my big sporting events that I don't know anybody at, or if it's someone I've already worked with before, it's often hey, checking back in, saw this one thing that reminded me of you, or even just a straight checking in. I'm starting to plan out my calendar for, the fall, and I just want to see if you need any support at your upcoming event. And that has been the primary source, has been email. And I found more my website and my social media is more of like my social proof. Or we talked about an earlier episode this season about portfolios, and I kind of poo-pooed portfolios, and then Mary got asked for a portfolio like 3 days after that episode dropped. So I guess that to me is my portfolio. It's more of my, like, if I email you saying I know what I'm doing, you then Google me and my specific name or my business name, you find my website and my social media, and you can see historically I've posted now for years of me doing what I say I do. So broad strokes. Mary, do I need to dive into any of that more? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think it made sense. I think it'll come more too as we talk about the other
Totally.
strategies. So yeah, love it.
What about your strategy? Because honestly, you've done something new this year, and that kind of sparked the idea for this episode. So you go ahead.
Yes, I have to say, from a higher level perspective, similar, I think, to Logan, a lot of my business is word of mouth. And so that is referral based stuff is my favorite. I think it's like the best kind of business. So in past years, I haven't put a focus on marketing. And so I think I don't do a ton still in regards to marketing, business, and services. But there are a few things I've done consistently. And then, like Logan said, one new thing that I've been trying lately. So the consistent things would be social media. Like Logan said, I do think it's a credible source, especially when people see that you have been posting semi recently, like you're doing recent work. It's not something like from a year ago, you were actively executing events. In my mind, I feel like there's credibility there. And also we have like a one pager. I've talked about it before, I think on the podcast, but it's like my one piece of, my gosh, what do you even call it? It's like the one bit of information about our business that we send out to other people. What do you call it? Collateral.
Yeah, marketing materials, your marketing collateral.
Yeah, and all it is like a business resume. But I tried to like make it look nice and be succinct about the services we offer, and then it shows like some past clients we've worked with. But like that is this one, I guess, thing that I've used when I'm trying to do marketing. I'll like put it on our LinkedIn and like some stuff like that. So those are just small little things. Have I been able to see if any of those have led directly to business? No, I don't know if they have or not, to be honest, but I think that they help, or at least, like we said, build credibility. The one new thing that I've tried this year is that we exhibited at a conference, and it's like a large conference. There was like 3,000 attendees, and it travels every year. It happened to be in Seattle, and so I decided if I'm ever going to exhibit, it's going to be when it's in my backyard, because I don't have to pay for a hotel or anything like that. And so I'm going to invest it here and now. And so I did that recently last month, and I don't know if it's paid off or not yet. I don't have I need more time to be able to figure out if these leads will turn into business. That was a ginormous learning experience, but I did that for the first time. So that is, something else I did. And I will say the reason I exhibited was because it was for fundraising professionals. And specifically, a lot of like decision makers, like development directors and executive directors attend this. And so that's why I felt it would be worth the time.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it was, I know you're still waiting to hear some of what your leads turned into, but just something different, right? And a little more, I feel like, of a traditional method maybe to go out and find new business, but something new and different for you. When you think about your sales or booking your events, do you set any milestones, Mary, or metrics, and how do you track that?
Oh, Logan, I'm going to be more interested to hear your answer on this, because I feel like anything that's a process, I'm like still continuously trying to figure out. So I don't have a firm process of milestones I set or metrics for sales. But most recently this year, as I've tried to get deeper into my financials and understand them more, I have been able to have a goal on how much money that we as a business need to make every month. And so that is a milestone that wraps in sales, right? Like, are we meeting that? Or if not, I need to try to book one more event, or something kind of like that. So it's not as exact. I would love to actually set more milestones. I think that would be really interesting for sales. There was a period of time when I tried to reach out to, I don't even remember, like 5 people a week, whether it was new or just previous or, networking, like something like that. You know what? As I'm saying this, you know what I have on my calendar every day of the week?
What?
Oh gosh. I have a 30-minute sales section. I block it off on my calendar so I don't book any other meetings. And guess what I'm supposed to be doing that right now as we're podcasting. So I don't hold my boundary on that one too hard, but I did that with an intention. So I guess there's something there.
We love it. We love a calendar invite, even if it's aspirational.
Yeah. Yep, definitely aspirational.
Yeah.
Tell me yours, Logan.
Yeah, for me, I mean, for a while, I feel like I would just be like, any money is good money. And so, I would just be like, I want to get booked, and I didn't have a number. And I think last year I definitely shared it here on the podcast that I had exciting news, was like, I started making a a goal total amount of revenue. So not even how much I was personally making, just revenue as a business, what I wanted to make last year. And I hit that with my projection. And I track also, so I track what I make. I have track what's coming in, like my profit loss statement does that in accounting terms, but I've had to make my own tracker that I can estimate looking ahead and forecasting like how much money I'm going to make every month from now until the end of the year based on payment terms. And that adjusts. Some people pay me faster than their terms, but I just have some bigger agencies I work with now that are like net 45, which is frustrating as an independent contractor, but understandable. But it just also means that I'm going to execute event and not get the full payment for it until a month and a half after it's done. As of the recording of this podcast, listeners, I will say I have one event that is 2 months overdue right now, which is frustrating from a big agency. But again, it was good money. It's just now I'm sitting and waiting. And so that's just been hard metrics, but that goes into my total. So I have a total number. Last year, I hit that number in June with my projection. So I knew I'd made my goal amount of money by June of that year. And I got to be a lot pickier with what I did in the fall and the winter, which was like awesome. So I am doing that again this year. I've set my metrics and I actually now it's June. So we're halfway through the year. And I actually was again I'm pretty close on track. And I just actually boosted and did a reach goal now. So I have a target and I have a reach target. Ooh, yeah, so fancy. To just see, because I think I'm going to put my head down a little bit more and take on maybe more work than I did last year towards the latter half of this year. And so that has just been helpful. I would give you advice. If I could go back to younger me, I would have made a target number sooner. I think I went off my base, like, oh, here's what my rent is and my base expenses. And I was like, I just want to make whatever it was, like $2,000 a month. And if I hit that, I was happy. Anything over that, I was over the moon, but I didn't have any bigger goals. And so that is something that I have found a lot more fulfillment in, and it's helped me. And it's also helped me understand, okay, yes, making more money is good, but also it can be like, how can I be more efficient cost-wise with what I'm spending on? But I digress.
I have a question for you based on what you said. Do you, when you set a stretch goal for yourself, do you have something that you reward yourself with if you meet your stretch goal?
Not particularly, apart from the stretch goal is factoring in some stretch trips that I'm planning on for the next year.
I think that counts.
I say it's the beauty and the curse of working for yourself, because it's one of those things where you can be like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of a little bit out of my budget. And it's like, well, I control my income, so I can just take on a few more events or be a little more discerning with which event I say yes to based on, the scope of work. Because yes, I can control my income. So it's a good problem to have.
So let's get into some examples. So Logan, can you describe how 2 different new clients found you this year?
How about I'll do one and then we'll go back and forth. So one new client that I had this year actually came as a referral from a past client's client. So the way I work with like agencies sometimes is like I get hired by the agency, but then there is a company that hires said agency. So company A hires agency B. I get paid by agency B, but I am representing them to agency A. So anyway, long story short, that was several years ago. The client contact and I had gotten close. We'd connected on LinkedIn, stayed in contact, kind of been rooting back and forth on each other's posts and things. And she sent me a message on LinkedIn and was like, you were great. I loved working with you. Can I introduce you to this other agency that she became aware of? And from that intro turned into 2 phone calls with 2 people at the agency, which then turned into getting booked as a show caller on a completely different, unrelated corporate show that had nothing to do with the first client, but was just kind of a funny roundabout way for me to find a new client. And again, going back to my sales strategy, it's a lot of either keeping in contact with people via email, or for her, as an example, she's seeing me post about our podcast on LinkedIn, about my YouTube on LinkedIn, about the company updates that I try to remember to do, to your point, Mary, to show I'm relevant, but I forget, on my like company page. So she's seeing that content, and that's helping me stay top of mind, to the point that then she reached out to like, can I introduce you? So that's one story. How about you, Mary? How did you find a new client this year?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things to talk about in regards to sales is power partners. I like the phrase. And so one of our power partners we found over time are auctioneers. Since we do so many nonprofit events, auctioneers definitely don't do the planning part. And so we're good power partners for each other. We can refer business to each other and help each other be more successful, really. And so there is an auctioneer in the Seattle area who refers a lot of business to us. And just I'm so appreciative that they're willing to do so. It's just amazing. And so one client in particularly were referred to us by them. They worked with this client on a past event. I don't even know if they're working with them this year or not, actually, on this other event. But we were referred for a festival, and the festival is going to be the biggest event I think that we've been a part of. And so it's pretty significant. It was a significant referral. But the reason I'm sharing this example is because one, it was from a power partner, but two, it was for an event that we don't always do. We have done some festivals, but we don't advertise that we do those as much. This festival is still for a nonprofit organization, so it seems like it fits pretty well in that sense, but it's a little bit of a different recommendation than we're used to getting from this person. But you never know what's out there or what could come from these people that you know. And so because it was a surprise to me and turned out to be something significant, I'm one, really grateful to them, but two, once again, just surprised. You don't know what's going to happen. So that was one of the ones I wanted to share. Logan,
Yeah,
what about you?
I love your concept of power partners. I think that's a
Yeah.
nice, it kind of complements and it goes in line with the community over competition. But I know we talk a lot here about befriending other people who do what you do, but your power partner example is more of a, in the same sphere, but actually explicitly
Complimentary.
doesn't do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wish I would say that I had more of those. I feel like I've had so many things that are all over the place, like geographically and budget wise. It's tough, but I'm working on it. I aspire to be like you, Mary, with that, with good, consistent power partners. Another one for me would be, actually, it's more of a fun story for people, of the idea that it was a client I worked with back in COVID doing virtual events. And then they stopped doing their virtual, went back to 100% in person, and decided to go back to their volunteer model. And that worked great for them. But they were just someone that I kind of stayed in contact with every couple months, maybe every half a year or so. I would check in every 6 months. And turns out they realized they needed help with someone on site to help with their production in person. So there was no virtual element whatsoever. So this was a client I worked with back from like 2020 to 2022. So to have then 3 years off and coming back to work with them, I definitely got chosen because I had worked with them in the past and they knew how I worked. And it was a nice part for me where it was like, oh, it's a new event, but I kind of understood already how they work internally. So that was one, again, just doing the very long sale of, like, I wasn't keeping in contact to like sell them business, but just knowing, I wanted to stay top of mind and I was the person they called. So, yeah. How about you, Mary? What's another one you've got?
Yeah, I love that too. I was thinking another kind of like sales strategy to represent would be from other event professionals, getting business from them. Specifically, event planners actually is what my example is about. I've said this before on the podcast, but when I first started my business, like 70% of my business came from other event planners who didn't do what I did, or they didn't want the business. When I started, I was probably taking on some of those clients that folks would like to send on to someone else. I'll put it that way. But I've been okay with that for a long time, actually. And so that was helpful for me to start off. So that form of like revenue stream has always been like really helpful. I appreciate those referrals from other event planners. So this year we got referred an event from someone else who does fundraising events in the area, and she's actually sent quite a bit of business our way lately, which is appreciative because they are at capacity. And so they can't say yes to any more. They've been working on hiring some more staff, I believe. And so they needed to just pass on some business during these busy seasons. And so luckily, I think we and others have been the beneficiary of that, multiple times. There's lots of us pitching for these events, but I am grateful to be on the list so that I can pitch for it too. But that's like kind of what you're talking about before. That comes not only from another event planner, but somebody who does something similar to what I do. And I just think that is incredibly powerful. Like if you can build a business with collaborators, I just can't say that enough. How much that can help your business when it comes to sales strategies. And like Logan said before, I think we can acknowledge that not every area is like that, but that was what has helped my business grow with sales is just working with friends. So there you go.
Yeah. And it just helps. I mean, it makes you look good, right? That's like, to me, is like the soft no if you're not available, but you can refer them to somebody who's good and reputable and you trust like that. And then that person does a great job. You only look better as the original referrer. And, I mean, Mary, I'm like, not to scare you, but I've definitely had some people that I've referred business to, and it's not meaning they won't ever come back to me again. It's like, oh, we get it. You got booked first. We worked with other people. This is great. But then they're like, but then they maybe really like you and they want to come back. Like it's a pipeline that kind of continues.
Totally. Yeah.
Versus you just saying, no, I'm not available. And that's it.
Right. All right. Moving on to our next question, Logan. What is something that surprised you about how you've booked an event?
My favorite one is it's an old one. It's a goodie, but an oldie. When I first moved back from China, I had joked that I was moving back to China just to get gigs back in China, which doesn't sound like it makes sense, listeners, but I was working with people in events in China that had no context of Chinese culture, the language, never been there before. They lived in America and they were getting sent for a week or two to China to do an event. And I was like, how do I become you? Because you're getting paid American dollars, like your rates are better and you're just coming in, doing the event and getting out. And I kid you not, I said yes to a sports gig that on paper was not financially the best move. They were just paying me a day rate. They weren't going to pay for my flights or my hotel in the city for 2 weeks. But before those 14 days were up, I had gotten booked by the producer on that show, who hadn't been the person who brought me in, to go and do an event in China for 6 weeks that summer. And this is in March. Within 2 weeks, they booked me a flight to training in Thailand for a week, a month from that then, and then been like, yeah, we're working together in the summer. And it was just one of those, the only reason I got that gig, one, I think I did a good job at that event, but two, someone else had the foresight to remind, to like in our icebreakers was like, oh yeah, and Logan speaks Mandarin Chinese. And I remember feeling so embarrassed, being like, has nothing to do with where we're at. We were in Vegas. Like it was like, yeah, don't think that's relevant, but thank you. And then sure enough, that did a light bulb in this woman's head, who's now turned into maybe I'll steal your term, Mary. It's a power partner of a person, more like that I just really love working with. And it's turned into so many events and so many opportunities because this one person said something that I just never would have told you when I went to this event of like, oh yeah, I'm going to have flights booked for a gig, a month later. So it's one of those, you never know who needs your skills and who you're going to hit it off with.
Literally. Yes.
Yeah.
I could not agree more. I actually wasn't going to say this, but you just reminded me, like, we have a colleague that Logan and I both know, and I met her very randomly. In fact, I don't know that I can recall off the top of my head how we got connected, but we were going to meet virtually and just, chat, get to know each other. And there was we were in different time zones. So I don't remember the details, but one of us got the time zone confused. So one was on the call while the other one wasn't. So there's this email thread like, are you joining? Like, oh, I thought it was this time, so it's already starting off like a little rocky. And we decided to find another time and we actually met, and that has grown into this crazy partnership and friendship over time. And so just once again, you never know. But the example that I wanted to give of something that surprised me on how I booked an event, this is simple, and I actually don't know if this is what sold someone on working with us, but I've had people say, wow, thank you for responding so quickly. Which I do now because I've shared on the podcast that I was really delayed once in my response. I didn't set clear expectations. I was on vacation. I was still trying to work, and I lost business because of that. Specifically, they mentioned it was because I was delayed and didn't set the expectation. So I learned a hard lesson then. Now people are saying that they are happy with how quick I've responded to at least get something on the calendar. It's just those little things, and I hope that has contributed to winning business.
No, that's I'm glad you brought up that point, because yes, I do think speed, especially in that sales process, if you haven't built that foundation, you want your foundation to be built on you're reliable and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And yeah, so much of that, as someone who just sent out an RFP asking for people to respond within 5 days, I try to be better also of setting up that expectation. I'm setting them up for success essentially, while also giving them permission to say, no, it's too busy. I get it. So one things that you and I have talked about, Mary, we both have built our businesses on having repeat clients. So what's an example of how you secure those repeat clients year to year?
I will say, so I'm in year 5 about year 5, and I am finally seeing the repeat clients. So it has taken time, obviously, because it just takes literally like time to see repeats. And we've also worked with a lot of organizations that have like literally closed down or stopped doing events. So there's been some things that I think have impacted that. But as we see these repeat clients finally start coming in, one of the things that, you know what, actually, I will admit I am still learning here when it comes to this, like how we can continue to secure. I'm just like really happy when someone wants to work with us again. A lot of times they're reaching out saying, here's our date. Are you available? And so I don't know that I'm like really doing much. I think that there's more that could be done to steward that relationship between events. But something that we want to start doing to answer this question, this was my team member's idea, so shout out to her. But she was saying that it would be great to do a promo or something, like within a few months after the event ends, saying if you would like to lock in this year's rates, then book us in the next 3 months or something. Because beyond that, we really do apply the next year rate. Like if somebody wants to work with us next year, then that's the next year rate, because we're going to be doing it next year. And so I think that promo is something that will help with our repeat clients, because I want to also give them a deal if I can, especially if we've enjoyed working with them, we want to work with them again. I think it's beneficial. I don't think it's just a sales strategy. It will save them some money if they're able to plan ahead a little bit more. So being upfront with them about that. So I don't have a firm answer on this. I'll have to report back. But Logan, what's something that you do to secure repeat clients?
Yeah, I love a soft hold. It's part of my like debrief process is like, do you already have next year's dates? And I'm in an interesting trend this year of 2025 where I've had several repeat clients, meaning I've worked for them the last 3-4 years, and they want to shake it up next year. They want to do something completely different, whether that's changing the cadence of their events, the time of year, the structure. It's very exciting. And I honestly am pretty tickled because I think it'll be an interesting challenge to see what they need. But I've also noticed that we have a close relationship and they like me and I like them, and they feel bad that they're changing what they're doing. And so I've tried to get continued with my soft hold, but I've also been very honest with all of them that I'm like, I want to work with you again in whatever capacity that looks like. I mean, I had one client, even I've scaled down. I scaled up because they needed more help and then they didn't need as much help. So I scaled down. And so I continue to use that. And I guess it's kind of a sales strategy, but I've always been like, if there's even a world though where it doesn't even make sense to work with me, I understand that too. And I'd rather you just refer me to other people who could use my services. Because I want it to be an open conversation. And I don't want them to feel like they have to hide that they're thinking about taking their event in a completely different direction because they're worried about like hurting my feelings that I'd take it personally. Because at this point with some of these clients, we have done a very similar thing for 3-4 years. It's very natural to want to shake it up. And so I feel like I was really uncomfortable the first time I tried to have that part of the conversation because I was like, I feel like they're not dancing around something. So I just kind of said it. And then it felt like I was breaking up with them. And I had to clarify, I'm not breaking up with you. I want to work with you guys, but I also want to make sure you're connected to your why and you're not doing something just because you feel bad and you want to help support me in my business, which is lovely, but like not the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to support them. So I then had that conversation at least 3 more times this year already. And it's gotten easier each time of just, again, I'm here to support. I'll do a soft hold. So again, my clients who are repeating, I do soft holds. And then I kind of follow up usually 6 months out. Only time I would do even earlier than that would be if I have any conflicting dates. And that is the benefit and negative of a soft hold. It's a negative for my client because technically they haven't locked me down. I can say yes to something else. But usually if I enjoyed like working with them and everything, I'll go back and say, hey, I have dates that, overlap. Are you willing to, come to a contract of just at least a deposit? So I know your event's happening because I'm turning down other business. But it also then does give me the flexibility because we've talked about on the podcast, my interests change. So that is one that, like, again, my client and the event could have been great, but just what I'm interested and excited about has evolved. Or maybe I'm not traveling as much or I want to travel more, all of that factors in. But Mary, you're not signing any like multi-year contracts with people. I was thinking about that as we got ready for this pod. I have not done that for any client.
No, I haven't done that either, actually. So that would be an interesting perspective for, anybody who's listening that does that. Let us know how you swing that. Give us some tips.
Yeah, no, I know big agencies do it when you're talking, 6-figure, 7-figure contracts. And that, again, their benefit, same thing. You get a discount because you're getting this year's rates for 2 years or whatever that is. But as an individual, I haven't felt the pressure to do that. If anything, people like the flexibility. And then it's now just more getting the word out when I'm busy to, get those people to book early. What's one thing, Mary, I know we both have talked about, we're still learning, we're still evolving. Listeners love us for that. But what's one thing you suggest our listeners do today to help improve their sales process?
Okay, it's very simple, but I would say it's to follow up and follow through. It's, the classic sales technique just to follow up, but it's truly so true. I can't tell you how many times I've had to send a second or even a third email in the sales process to just checking in, like, do you have any questions, and it's then I'll end up booking them many of the time. So I don't feel like you're being annoying. Follow up is part of the process. And if you let that fall off the bandwagon, you may lose that business. I do think it's super important. So there's my tip. Logan, what about you? What's one thing you'd suggest?
Yeah, I think it would be planning ahead. It's something I have to do with my sporting events. I mean, we're a year out from, or now 9 months out from the Winter Olympics in 2026. FIFA is on the tip of everybody's tongue here in the Seattle area. That's a year from now. And a lot of times this is when teams staff up. So if you are someone who is used to most of your events, you only need a month or a couple months of lead time, you're going to be too late for those really big events. So this is your time to go on and really forecast, like, do you want to go after a FIFA role? You should be looking right now to see if there's jobs for something like that, or reaching out to companies that have secured bidding or anything on any of those kind of gigs. So I would select one new event for 2026 that you want to start working on now. I'm not sure how some of the big like award shows and things work, but I assume a lot of them are pretty similar where they're kind of staffing up a year in advance, unlike some of your smaller things.
I love it. Wonderful. All right. So we're coming to a close here, but Logan, what is one thing that you're going to do to book a new event this year? We're going to keep you accountable.
Yes. I need to sit with current June brain halfway through 2025, Logan, and relook at my target events for the rest of the year, like for the fall and the winter. As I mentioned, I've hit a stretch goal now, or I've exceeded I want my goal to be a stretch goal. So I need to look at the events that I did this past year and send emails to those several people to confirm. Well, one, I got to think about if I want to work them again. And then I need to confirm if they need help on their event, because that'll help me figure out what new business I have to go after. So I guess this isn't a new event, but it's a repeat one. And that's my strategy is I start with my repeats because I already built those foundations and then figure out what I want to add around it. Mary, what about you? What's one thing you're doing to book a new event or a repeat event this coming year?
Yeah. I'm just going to fall back and say it was that exhibitor thing. And I hope that, something comes from it, that the leads come. So my one thing is to make sure I'm following up on the leads that I made from the exhibitor experience. So that's what I'll do.
I feel like that's a pro tip we've given sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
Been like,
Yeah.
hey, remember those leads you got? Actually follow up with them.
Yeah, easier said than done, but yes, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
best practice.
Yeah. Well, before I close, Mary, anything else you want to add about sales strategies for event planners and their business?
No, just try something. You got it.
Yeah. I think it's, we had all those fun words. I can't even remember now from ChatGPT. Something said dojo or mojo in it.
Yeah.
But I think everybody does it. And so if you want to be like Mary and have a calendar invite on your calendar that tells you to do a sales 30 minutes, or you want to be like me and put a little list on your planner that says reach out to these 3 people, or whatever that looks like to you, it is something. I think my biggest takeaway is you do kind of need to always be thinking about sales and how you're booking new business until it takes a lot more when you're getting started, whether you're starting new as a freelancer on your own, or you're getting started as a planner in your business and you're just in somebody else's business, you're just learning the ropes. It's going to take a while, but I will say the momentum builds. Like I'm getting more leads, more organic ones that I don't have to go out and really like hunt for now, 8-9 years in business, way more than I did when I was only 1 or 2 years in business. So you do need to build that foundation, but just know it does get better if you keep doing, being consistent and honing in on what you like to do. And that brings us to the end. Mary, you have our bonus tip this week.
I do. Okay, our bonus tip today is simple, but it came from a recent debrief call that we had with a client, and it made me think. So I'm going to share it with you all. As people are leaving your event, if, depending on what your venue looks like, do you have someone that is staffed to say goodbye to them? So this is our bonus tip today is maybe staff, either a volunteer or have some staff member, take a little bit of time as the event is ending to station themselves near the area in which people are leaving to say, thank you so much for coming. Have a great night. We talk about surprise and delight. It is the simplest thing that you can do, but I think it's an important role to consider as you're staffing up your event with volunteers or whoever. So that is our bonus tip for today.
Very cool. Thank you, Mary. And that brings us to the end of our episode. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can connect with us on LinkedIn directly as well. Just let us know you heard about us through the podcast. We love hearing from you. And if you want more Better Events content, head over to our private paid community on Substack. But we also do have a private Slack for our community over there. And as always, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.